So wrote D.H. Lawrence in 1929, a year before his death. During his 44 years, Lawrence wrote over 60 non-fiction short stories, 8 plays, numerous poems, reviews, articles, travel and history books, and several thousand letters. The places in which he lived and the people he knew greatly influenced his writing, and none more so than the Eastwood of his childhood and teenage years. Christened David Herbert Richards Lawrence, he was born in this house on Friday the 11th of September 1885, the fourth of 5 children and the youngest of 3 sons. His father, Arthur Lawrence, the son of a tailor, was a coal miner at the nearby Brinsley colliery. His mother, Lydia Lawrence, who had been a teacher, was the daughter of George Beardsall, an engineer and Wesleyan lay preacher. It was thus into a family of contrasting working class and middle class religious backgrounds that Lawrence was born. His birthplace was a terraced house in Victoria Street, Eastwood. This area was known as the New Buildings, a gridiron pattern of miners' dwellings built by the local mining company in the 1850s. The houses backed onto large common areas, which Lawrence later described as those sordid and hideous squares. Today, 8A Victoria Street has been restored to give a vivid impression of life in a mining community in Victorian England. With its black-leaded range, the kitchen was the focus of home life, and scenes like these were to provide the material from which Lawrence crafted episodes for novels such as Sons and Lovers. The cosy parlour with a roaring fire was reserved for Sundays and special occasions. It also provided a shop window for the linen and baby clothes sold by Lawrence's mother. In 1887, the family moved to 28 Garden Road, an area known as the Breach, a group of 8 blocks of terraced housing. The end house in each block was slightly larger, a privilege for which the Lawrences paid an extra 6 pence per week rent. The house is depicted in Sons of Lovers as...
This is the front bedroom, and it's slightly larger, so we assume this was Lydia and Arthur's bedroom, so parents of the family.
Yep.
D.H. Lawrence was probably born here on the 11th of September in 1885, and I'll try and point out the objects of interest in this room for you.
Okay.
We've got the gazunda under the bed. And why is that called a gazunda, do you know?
I don't know.
Because it goes under the bed. Yeah. Pulls these things. But we have this throughout our property, as we know the Lawrence family had it in their 3rd Eastwood house on Walker Street. So it's very atmospheric. So you imagine Lawrence living with this type of lighting. It does set a very nice scene. As we've got a gas safety shut-off system, so don't worry, we're not going to explode. We've got pictures of Lawrence as a baby and a young boy here. But it's quite a good source for us. He's got his mouth open in the image. He's also very wrapped up in his pram, so we assume that he's got a snuffly cold.
Yeah.
And so he didn't want to go out and play the rough games with the boys, so he spent more time with his sisters and with his mother, so he became more genteel. Her father fitted engines for ships, but they had middle class aspirations, so they wanted to climb the social ladder. I know that Lydia was very, very poorly when she passed away, aged 59. She actually had a stomach tumour. So you can imagine the pain that she would have been in, so no doubt she would have found need for this lovely convalescing table. So saying a typical working class family with 12 or 13 children, you would actually have to sleep probably about 5 in a bed like that, topping and tailing, which would be nice and warm in the winter, but a bit hot and stuffy in summer weather like today. And my favourite thing about this room is actually the wallpaper, because it's historically accurate, which is really nice. They found a scrap of the wallpaper in the small cupboard over there, and the experts came in and they dated it to be of the exact period the Lawrence family lived here. So they narrowed it down to just the 4 years the Lawrence family lived in this home, which is really good, and they replicated it for us. So Emily was 3 years older than D.H. Lawrence, and she was the eldest daughter of the family, so she was probably quite conventional. Got married aged 22. She probably would have given up her occupations at the time. And we can start to see Lydia's influence over her children. Emily didn't marry a minor. Lydia seemed to have a bit of a vendetta against minors. So this is our lovely attic space. A lot of people comment how big the room actually is. Arthur, as a butty, so in a more senior position in the mine, would actually earn about £70 a year. Common agricultural worker at the time would only earn about 30 from the common, say, farm hands. And as a butty, Arthur would also have priority with moving around the bigger and better properties of Eastwood. And we've got a lovely straw mattress here on this bed. Very good camera. Good gadget you've got there. And they'd actually cut up all of their old clothes into long strips, and they'd use either a spring hook or a podger to stick the rags through the holes in the hessian sack, so you'd have to pack them in really, really densely. As you can see, it would actually create quite nice patterns, and it would be really hard wearing. He was quite rebellious, just like Arthur as well. He started off on the right track. You can see Lydia's influence. He didn't go and work down the mine. He actually got an apprenticeship in Nottingham with the picture framers, but he joined the army on a whim, so he signed himself up into a contract. He absolutely hated it, probably due to the discipline of being in the army. So Lydia actually bought him out, and we have reports it would have cost about £18 at the time. Oh. Yeah, Arthur only earned £70 a year. So this is our kitchen. It's a lovely room, we've got lots to talk about in here. I'll just mention the important bits, I think. Lovely sewing machine. Lydia did a bit of sewing in her time, but I'll talk a bit more about that later. But the kitchen really was the hub of the home. It's where most of the family life would occur. So it wasn't just the kitchen, it would be their living room, their dining room, and also their bathroom. And the range is one of the most important objects in the Victorian home. It did so much for the family. Basically big cesspits, and you'd use ash to cover whatever was in there to try and reduce the smell. If you imagine on a hot and humid day, the smell would linger. There'd also be flies as well, and the Lawrence family kitchen is really, really close to the toilet. Your Monday was always a wash day. You'd have your leftovers from your Sunday dinner, so that made it a bit easier at least, but no doubt it was a very hard day. You probably had to get up at about 5 AM to draw water from the pump, which is just over there. You'd stick it in the copper here to heat up. You'd also boil wash your white and your very soiled clothes, and then you'd use all those implements over there, dolly peg and a dolly ponch to aggravate your washing. You'd use carbolic soap as well. Which, are you familiar with the smell of carbolic soap? Yeah. Oh, I actually quite like the smell. And we've got a real typical parlour here. You do actually have the front door over there. It's got a curtain across it, as we assume that's how the Lawrence family would have had their front door, as it leads in directly from the street, and you wouldn't want to receive just any guest straight into your parlour. As you can see, it's filled with lots of fine furniture, a table with a chenille wobbly tablecloth and an aspidistra plant in the middle, which thrived on being in the parlours, liked to be ignored by its owners.